If you haven't heard yet, mixing engineer Spike.AI, known for his work with some of the biggest recording artists in the world, like Madonna, Taylor Swift, U2, and many more, has just announced an AI-powered mixing platform called Spike.AI. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Isaiah Prather, and today I want to talk about something that's been causing quite a stir online lately, and to share my thoughts on the subject with you and get a discussion going overall on these tools in general. On the website's homepage, it says, "In a world where AI wants to steal your voice, we want to amplify yours like never before." And the platform appears to essentially be an AI mixing suite based on text prompts from the user, in theory making the job of mixing and mastering engineers extinct. From the marketing, it seems that Spike.AI is looking to be the LandR or e-mastered of the mixing world, and being created by such a successful mixer, to say it stirred up quite a bit of conversation is an understatement. One of the biggest talking points I've seen against this technology is that generative AI technology is often unethical and trained on regurgitations of other creators' work, ultimately meaning that the AI is stealing their work. This idea is definitely not a new one and something we hear a lot about when the talk of AI is brought up in relation to video and content writing. It's definitely a concern when we live in a world where companies are getting caught and paying huge legal settlements for scraping data and building AI models off of content they don't own the rights to. I obviously can't speak to how any of that plugin was designed or created, but I would hope it's at least trained off of Spike's work, which would at least make sense given his track record of mixing such big artists, but it's a completely valid concern to have. I think ultimately though, one of the largest fears around technology like this is the idea of robots taking our jobs. In an industry with increasingly shrinking budgets and stricter deadlines, tools like this can honestly feel like such a stab in the back for mixing engineers who've spent years, hell, even decades of their life working towards perfecting their craft as a mixing engineer, all to have that eventually replaced by an app that could potentially be based off of the work of thousands of mixing engineers' discographies. And I think regardless of what side you're on, musician or producer, you can probably see why something like this can have such a dark outlook for some. I think the marketing itself definitely pushes this case a bit further too, as the Spike.AI stuff seems very much in line with the goal of becoming the new standard tool for smaller artists, which could ultimately affect the smaller project studios more so than anyone. I truly don't see a world where artists like Metallica are using an app like this to mix their record, but it very much could be a reality where we see most home recorded music mixed on platforms like this, rather than through a smaller studio. And I can see why so many people share such a bleak outlook for project studio owners around the world. On that same note though, I believe there's a flip side we often forget to look at, and it's how a lot of these tools are bringing access to music creation to the masses in a way we've never really seen before. And not just Spike.AI, with tools like eMastered, LandR, and even the non-AI smart mixing tools like Soothe and Ozone, they're allowing artists to make better sounding recordings than ever before, regardless of whether they could have ever afforded to do so before or not. Which in practice means more music and creativity in the world, which generally speaking is a net positive. It's also important to note that tools like Ozone and Soothe and many of the other smart mixing and mastering tools are just that, tools. Many pro mixing engineers are still using tools like these somewhere in their process to help them speed up their workflow and stay creative. So there's plenty of value for tools like this to be used in the studio if adapted properly that don't have to mean the end of the world for studios, small or large. For example, a friend of mine, Jesse Ernster, mentioned in a video on this same topic how he could see this tool or some future software being useful for monotonous tasks like session prep and other non-creative tasks like audio restoration and cleanup that ultimately just mean busy work for the engineer and would result in you being able to put more creative time into each project. In the music industry specifically, I also think we often overlook the human connection that occurs when an artist works with a producer as well, which ultimately does affect the end result. Most bands work with a given producer to get access to the creative lens this person views music through, not necessarily his amp settings or something that could be stolen from someone. If there are studios that are at risk from technologies like this, it's going to be the studios that are running songs through the studio like an assembly line without any care for the artist or band. Otherwise, I believe that the great up-and-comers as well as veteran producers and mixers will still be able to maintain lifelong careers by catering to the song and creative process more than AI ever could replicate. As like I said earlier, everything AI creates is derived from something that came before it. I think this type of technology over the years will ultimately end up making the average quality of home recorded music that much better, and at the end of the day, some of the most important factors for being successful as a producer will be the more creative production tasks, and overall how you can help the artist achieve their musical vision and being a good overall hang in the studio. I don't think we'll ever see a day where we completely revert to an AI-less world, so I think while you can still have your opinions and stances on this type of technology, it's incredibly important to always keep an open mind to how this stuff can improve your workflow, as not all of it's looking to get in the way of professionals. I truly do believe that some of these companies out there do have good intentions, and you just have to see what works for you and your situation depending on your current skill set and see where the tools apply. And one example of this is just looking around at all of the advancements in AI we've seen over the past few years in general. When a new tool pops up, there's often this looming fear about how it's going to affect any given industry that it pertains to. And then often the creatives always find their way to shine through and use these tools in their advantage to aid the creative process versus letting it get in the way. Ultimately, like with all new technologies, time will tell how things end up playing out. But overall, I always try to keep a positive attitude towards change and try to move forward with these types of things in the best way possible and hope that it can positively affect how people work. But I'm curious how you feel and would love to get a discussion going in the comments below. So if you have any thoughts on Spike or even AI tools in general and how it's going to affect music and other creative industries, leave it down below. I'm always looking forward to checking out what you guys have to say. Thanks again for checking out the video and happy music making.